Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could remain standing for a moment. Unfortunately, over the summer, the Attleboro School Committee lost a student in tragic circumstances, Olivia Knighton of Coelho Middle School, and so I'd ask that we take a moment of silence to recognize her and her family's loss. Thank you. Welcome to the Attleboro School Committee meeting of Monday, August 14th, 2023. This is your reminder that this meeting is being electronically recorded. And we'll start tonight by turning it over to Superintendent Sawyer for his report.
Thank you, Chairman. The administration returned to duty on Monday, August 7th. We've been busy ever since making preparations for the return of teachers on the 25th and students shortly after that. Communication will be going home to families next week. They should expect to hear from me and from their schools with some basic information, the most central being that first day of school for grades 1 through 12 plus is Tuesday, August 29th. For kindergarten is Wednesday, September 6th, and for our ELC it's Thursday, September 7th. So that information and some other key details will be provided to families again next week. They should see that early in the week. While we're talking about communication, I just want to remind everyone that the district has adopted the APS app as our chief means of communication. We did experience last year in our transition, some families weren't quite ready to make that move, but we're really going to be making a push this fall to get everyone to buy into the idea that that's where the district and schools are communicating with families. All of our central information, things like start of school and all that will be in the feed, which you get through the app. And then communication between teachers and families will be through rooms, and we have specific information going out from teachers to families about how to do that at the start of school. So there'll be plenty of instructions on how all that works, but I just wanted to remind the community that that is the place where people can look for all information about Attleboro Public Schools. The only other thing I wanted to update the committee on this evening, the last few meetings we had community input about concerns around the books in our libraries. And as I sat and listened, I feel like there are a couple things I need to clarify, things that we've already said, but it's clear to me that some of our messages aren't connecting, so no harm in trying again. I'd like to start that there is common ground with the message that we received. I'm not being glib in any way when I say that we completely agree with many of the people that we heard from that there is no place for pornography in schools. We agree with that sentiment, and that's why there is none. So there's a complete agreement that that is bad for children and that the district has a responsibility to keep that out of our schools. I think more importantly, we also agree as a district, as an administration, that public schools are here to serve their communities, right? That is our function. We serve the community. We are here at the pleasure of the community. And so where parents have individual concerns about what they want their students to be exposed to, we have a responsibility and take seriously the need to honor the feelings of parents, right? We do not know better how to raise the children than their own parents. Don't believe that, and certainly don't ever want to take a stand that undermines that. We believe that it's because we honor the wishes of parents that we have the latitude to meet a wide range of perspectives as a public school, because on almost any issue you can pick, there are going to be disagreements among families as to what the right place to land is. And so it's one of the joys of working in public education that we have to navigate all of that and create a space in which people who see it differently can all interact and feel like the schools belong to them and that the schools are a safe place for their children. And so we take that seriously, and I believe that the way that we have conducted ourselves for years is in line with that. Part part of the communication that I'll be sending next week to families, I will be explicitly encouraging families to communicate to their schools if they have concerns about what they want their children to be reading. Right? This is, I think, a very fair and simple request. People do not, while I would recommend that where people have specific concerns about titles, that they are explicit. If we go on a title-by-title basis, it's easy to not get that wrong, right? That said, I certainly heard parents expressing that, they can't, the responsibility of being on top of every book that's possibly available, knowing what's in every book is a big ask for them. I agree. I don't expect that of them. Parents can communicate to their teachers and to the school general concerns, right? Don't want my child reading violent content, sexually explicit content, whatever the concern may be. People can make general concerns, and we will make every effort to honor that. Now, the problem is the more general you are, the more, when we get into gray areas as to where the lines are, it becomes more of a question. But if we're aware of the concern, we at least can reach out to families and talk to them about individual titles that are in question, either because the student wants to read them or because they're being used in class. And if we're aware of it, then we can work with families to try to get it right as to exactly where those lines are. So it's important that families who have these concerns communicate them. And by the way, this is not new. We've been doing this for as long as I've been at central office, and people have always brought to our attention their concerns, right? And we do this in lots of places, right? We do this with the sex ed curriculum. We also do it with, like, at the high school. Some teachers will sometimes show R-rated movies. We express that, notify parents, let parents make informed choices. This is in line with all of that, where people let us know that they have concerns. We're working on it. So I really encourage that people who have these concerns communicate them. There were also questions about our middle school libraries, specifically, where we have young adult collections and younger kids in the school. I just want to be clear, because there seemed to be some confusion about this. Grade 5 and 6 students do not have access to the young adult collection. That is a special section of the library in which grade 5 and 6 students, when they're in the library, are not allowed to access. Sometimes students want books out of young adult. As 5th and 6th graders, it's not common, but it's not impossible. When that happens, the paralibrarian in the middle school contacts the family and gets permission to allow students to have access to that book. Right? They can't just go over and grab it and take it out. Right? That is not the case. For grades 5 and 6, the young adult section is sectioned off for them. For grades 7 and 8, they do have access to browse that section, but parents can express that they want their students either limited from the section in its entirety so that they can't browse it, or they want certain subject matters to be avoided. And so where that's the case, again, we're already doing that. And that is how that works in our middle school libraries. I want to close by saying that I think it's just really important that we focus on the fact that this is a hypothetical problem, not a real problem. Once, 10 years ago, we gave a book, provided access to a book to a student against the wishes of what the parents wanted. We got that wrong. We took it very seriously and really changed the policies in our libraries to ensure that that could never happen again. And the fact that 10 years later, we have yet to have a complaint where a parent can say, I told you that this is how I feel about this, and you let my child take out this book anyways, has not happened, right? We heard stories about people taking out books that they had questions with. Yep, that's absolutely true. But in those cases, we had not been told by those families to avoid that, right? Where we're aware of concerns, we are honoring them. That continues to be the case, will continue to be how we operate. And as we've been saying all along, this is the best way to ensure the widest access, which is where I want to end, which is to say that, promoting reading is among the most important things we do as a district. The research suggests that reading makes us a better person, right? Not everybody who reads is a good person, and not everyone who doesn't read is a bad person, but everyone is made a better person by reading. And so getting students to be readers is not only a way to help them with their academic goals, help them to be better students, but is literally one of the surest fire ways we have to help them grow up to be better human beings. And from my perspective, the problem we should be focusing on as society is less about, whether or not this title or that title is a good title in a library, and more about we should be focused on how do we get kids to be readers. We have a lot of work to do as a district on that. It's a thing that we talk about pretty extensively, and whatever the community can do to support us in promoting reading is where we should be focusing our attention.
Thank you. I want to again thank the administration for how they've handled this situation over the last couple of months with questions from the community. I think you've been responsive and patient, and I think provided thorough explanation of our policy that's responsive to concerns of some community members. I wish, I'm glad you mentioned promoting reading, because as you were talking about this, I thought, and as I've been thinking about this issue, I wish that it was a reflection of the community's commitment to reading and promoting reading, and because I think that's one of the most important things we do as a school district, is teaching kids how to read and how to analyze what they read, and then reflect on what they've read and explain it and analyze it. As someone who personally loves to read and reads every day for his job, I know how important it is, and I wish it was a reflection of these last couple months of the community pushing towards that. I don't think, from what I've seen, that's what it is, but hopefully it'll lead towards more of a promotion and understanding of reading. But I do hope finally that this can be the last that we spend talking about this limited topic of books, titles in the library, which has taken up too much of our time at these meetings, I think. So thank you again for your patience and diligent explanation to the public. Anything else?
Yes, I'd like to call up Mr. Furtado to provide some operational updates.
Evening.
Good evening.
Couple of things to report based on the state finally, governor signing off on the state budget end of last week. One is, as you probably know, breakfast and lunch for our students are going to be free for the school year, which is terrific news. We continue to urge families who feel they may need assistance to apply for assistance. Even though it doesn't change the status of the meal for their student, it will impact other services in the district for those families. So it would still be important to formally fill out and submit an application. Secondly, we are still having very slight adjustments to our year-end position from last year. However, I feel reasonably confident that I can report that our surplus was $399,852, which is 0.4% of our overall budget. So, essentially we spent 99.6 cents of every dollar that was given to us. Happy with the support that my colleagues in the district gave us, and very happy with the outcome. And finally, with the governor signing the budget last week, our net school spending number kind of landed. Then that was $97,105,121. If you do the gyrations in our appropriated budget for '24, we were, in terms of net school spending funding, where this isn't what we received, but this is the ins and outs of the credits and all of those kinds of things. $98,921,597. So it's a 1.8 million above net school spending. there's a lot in that. It's not, again, it's not our direct benefit, but those are how the numbers kind of shook out now that everything is kind of settled.
How's that compared to what we were expecting or basing our budget on when we submitted, when the city submitted a number to us that we approved?
Yeah, it's, roughly 700,000 below.
Below
We
what
we were expecting 2.5 above net school spending. We're $700,000 below that.
Mr. Menchie?
Thank you. Mark, is there a commitment, we have a surplus for fiscal year '23? Oftentimes, the city will turn that back over to the schools. Has there been any talk from the new mayor's office and her office as to whether or not that'll be the case?
Yeah, no, technically, the city hasn't closed the books yet. They're going to do that on August 22nd. So, again, in any given day, it'll move, a few $100s one way or $1,000 the other way, but as they're still reconciling things, so no, I don't know that. I do know that historically, for those who've been on the committee longer, when we were always at net school spending, when you have a surplus and they don't return it, that would suggest you go below. So they've always, in those circumstances, they've always returned it. Since the city has been funding the district slightly above net school spending, they're not necessarily obligated to do that. That's been a kind of a year-to-year negotiation, if you will, and see what happens.
Yeah, I was just knowing that the number we got this year, and again, I think we've talked about the budget a bunch of times now, and we understand the circumstances with the special election and hiring a new budget director. All that being said, we're less above net school spending than we would expect. I'm hoping that there's some wiggle room and some flexibility, I guess, and I was curious if you had had any discussions yet, so I guess we'll have to wait to see how everything shakes out after next week.
Yeah, yes. And the other component that I just wanted to report out on is in terms of transportation. As you know, we requested $350,000 from the stabilization fund to account for some transportation issues. We ended the year using $150,000, not $350,000. So that was sort of the impact of that. I suspect that some of that $399 will go toward filling that hole overall. And then fee for service, we are roughly at or slightly ahead of where we usually are at this point in the year. But enrollment's up about 200 students, so we're still expecting to have fun in August.
Mr. Geddes?
Thank you. Just, can you give us the 98 million number again? It was 98, was it 98.5?
The funding, net school spending funding from the city is 921,597.
Thank you. And you mentioned still applying for assistance for reduced breakfast and lunch.
Right.
That impacts other services. Just for the community, those services include transportation, fee-for-service transportation. What other
Athletic,
services?
any fees in the school. So, if you're eligible for free and reduced lunch, technically the schools cannot charge you fees. And the other part is the whole federal title grants. So there's a bunch of academic support work that happens, and it's fundamentally based on the demographic of economically disadvantaged members of the community. So with the formal application, those numbers increase, and therefore that funding will increase.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, two things. Number one, I do have concerns with the fact that, with the free and reduced lunch, which is wonderful, it does come with the concern that they're not going to fill out the applications because why do I need to if I'm getting it anyway?
Right.
Which will impact us in future years because the funding will be less. So anything we can do, communication or what have you, is important. I wish the state would actually relook at how they're determining that rather than using reduced and free lunch. But the second thing is, can you just reiterate, I know we had a long conversation about this when we were doing the budget, why the 700,000 less than what we were expecting is not catastrophic as it could be in previous years because of some other stuff that we are going to get, but how come next budget that may not be the case?
Sure, yeah. So for '24, the year we're going into, we enjoyed a nice kick in terms of the level of state funding we received through Chapter 70, and because of that, our overall budget is certainly workable. It does not address the superintendent's identification of personnel and services that we wish we had. It's not a fulfillment of those wishes. However, it's going to certainly allow us to operate and maybe even add some things that we wouldn't have much choice on, like enrollment-driven staff. However, in '25, July 1, 2024, we're going to have a short window through the month of September where our federal COVID funds, ESSER grants, will no longer be available for use. And that's going to be a pretty significant cliff. We have some plans in place right now to account for some of that, not all of it yet, still trying. So that 700,000 will mean an awful lot in the '25 budget to accommodate what we're carrying of something around $2 million in the ESSER grants.
Thank you.
Mr. Minichi?
Thank you. I just wanted one last clarifying point. When you said we only used 150,000 of the 350,000 we asked for, does that mean we only took 150 out of the stabilization fund?
Yeah, yes.
So we weren't, the 300 and change surplus was not inflated by 200,000 unused?
Oh, no,
Okay.
yeah, that's a real
Okay,
number.
all right,
Yeah,
thank you.
the transportation piece of that is very small, 50,000 maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Geddes?
Sorry, just a little nugget that you dropped in there in your explanation with transportation. You said we're up about 200 students in enrollment
Yeah,
compared to last year.
yeah.
I don't know if the administration is planning to answer this question in another way, but whereabouts are those increases? And if I'm not mistaken, we wouldn't see any budgetary impact in that enrollment until next year.
Right.
Because, we may show 200 more students on October 1st. We may show 300 more students on October 1st, but the state won't fund us at that enrollment level until the following academic year.
Right.
Okay. So I guess where are we seeing that increase across the district?
Last I looked, and it's been a little bit, so.
Everywhere?
Trying to get, no, here quite, pretty heavily here, not exclusively.
A disproportionate number are at the high school. And as a result, we added another staff member to the high school at the end of June because we saw the impact of those increased class sizes because of the, increased enrollment. So they turned that into an extra math teacher that we didn't have planned for until, the end of the month. So we're seeing a real impact at the high school.
And I think that was part of the goal of building a new high school, was to make it more appealing for our residents and to increase the programming to retain our students. So I guess I just didn't expect to see that big of a change that quickly. So that's great news. Thank you.
Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to verify, 200 students, that's students that were not currently in the middle school that are now going to be in the high school, right? Brand new?
A census to census saying in October of '22.
Yep.
We were at 58 change, and now we're at,
So 200
6,000
students
change.
showed up out of nowhere, summer kindergarten and this and that and all that other stuff. But in the high school, you're saying it's disproportionate. So do we have any idea what is the cause behind that? Because I know that we always fluctuate and we always get, some students in here and there, but 150 students or whatever it is at the high school is significant. That's not the norm.
Yeah, no, it's the building. I mean, how about this? If the stories behind the people who are trying to register for the schools who don't live here is any indication, it's about coming to Attleboro High School.
Okay. So are you saying it was parents who were sending their kids to private schools have decided to come to
No,
Attleboro
I'm
High School?
saying it's people who live in Pawtucket and Rehoboth and other places who are trying to sneak an Attleboro address and send their kids to Attleboro High School.
So are we
I
saying
think,
all?
I think Foxborough got hit.
Okay, so that's where I'm really going with
Yeah,
that.
there is,
Right.
there's certainly a.
But I understand what you're saying, but we're, just to put it out there, we're doing everything in our power to prevent
Well, as I
that
said,
from happening,
Catching those.
right?
The lead there was because we're catching them.
Yes. Well, still, but we're up 200, so
Yeah.
it can't be all from Foxborough. What I'm asking is where's it coming from? Hopefully, it's not ones we're not catching. Let's put it
No,
that way.
I think that there are people who are choosing Attleboro.
That have moved into Attleboro.
Yep.
Yeah, because again, if you drive around the city, there's developments everywhere. So I think finally that's catching up to us, and that's probably going to be a permitted issue as we move forward. All right,
I
thank you.
mean, the enrollment at the high school is over 1,800. It's been, 20 years at least since we had a number like that.
Yep. That's big.
But that's the point. 20 years ago, we had 7,000 students in our district. So we're still 1,000 down from that high water mark 20 years ago. And we have a bigger high school to be able to handle that as well. It's staffing is what needs to catch up.
Yes, although I'll remind everyone that the MSBA wouldn't allow us to build a high school of the size that we recommended. And so there's a space constraint here that we're up against too.
Yeah, we're at the theoretical capacity of the building now.
The rest of the state's in decline in terms of enrollment, so they argued that,
They're all coming out.
we didn't need a school this big. But, they couldn't see the vision of how we were going to put this all together.
Mr. Frappier?
So just a question, when you say we're at capacity, you mean with this new influx, well, do we have a hard number of what capacity of this building could be theoretically, or not theoretically? What's the
It
real
was
number?
constructed to accommodate 1825.
25. And what are we at today, like 1807?
18-something.
Okay.
Just to clarify, though, the old high school capacity was what? I mean, we were over capacity and,
Well, I mean, it depends on how you
right, I mean,
pack them in, right?
Stack the
Like,
desks.
right, right. The point being that we're at
We're in a much better,
capacity.
we're in a much
Yes,
better
right.
condition. Yes, absolutely. The conditions at Attleboro High School are, despite the fact that we are up against the limits of how it was designed, are far better than they were in the old building.
And we have the ability to handle more than capacity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else? Anything else, Mr. Furtado?
That's
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Minutes from our June 26, 2023 meeting. Minutes were circulated with your materials. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any edits, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda, 5 items tonight. Motion to accept a payment in the amount of $43.50 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts. Motion to accept a contribution check in the amount of $9,250 from 1-8 Foundation to the Attleboro Public Schools. Motion to accept the contractual obligation in the amount of $87.90 from Planet 8, Inc. as broken down on the check receipt dated July 20th, 2023. Motion to declare the no longer operational maintenance department 1995 GMC Sierra pickup as surplus. Motion to forward to municipal council for approval a prior year invoice in the amount of $21,922.31.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, subcommittee meeting reports tonight. We have policy and personnel. Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy and Personnel Subcommittee met last Monday, August 7th. The following motions and job descriptions were all voted out unanimously. So the first one that we discussed was the IMG animals in schools. Our current policy effectively aligned with mask. We added some additional wording regarding therapy, because here in the high school, we're very fortunate that we actually have 2 therapy dogs. So we wanted the policy, administration wanted the policy to be a little bit more descriptive in that area. So we added a specific term to our exceptions of therapy, and then in the prohibited section. And then we also included a detailed section regarding therapy dogs. As far as the exhibit IMG-E1, there's no recommended edits. What we have in there is good as is. So again, this was voted out of the subcommittee, so I'm going to put it right up to a vote. Is there any further discussion? Again, all these policies were provided to the members. Were there any discussion regarding policy IMG, animals in schools? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Next, policy GDB, staff contracts and compensation plans. We did update our policy. Ours covers all non-bargaining units personnel, not just support staff like masks has. And we also, our policy is a little bit more streamlined and direct in regards to what we do here in the district. So again, the policy was provided to all members. Is there any discussion regarding policy GDB, staff contracts and compensation plans? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous, thank you. Next, policy GDD, staff vacations and holidays. The first 3 paragraphs, we're looking to align with masks. Just to let everybody know, if you take a look down in the holiday section, as far as Thanksgiving, which lists all of the holidays, Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving, we know that day, so we actually did indicate the 3rd Thursday and the 3rd Friday. Beyond that, we did edit the vacation statement, and we used weeks instead of days so that we're aligned with masks in that section. All right. Is there any further discussion regarding policy GDD, staff vacations and holidays? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Good. Unanimous. And we did have a discussion, further discussion. We've been holding discussions regarding policy FF, naming of new facilities, and FFA, memorials. Ultimately, we did decide that our policies are good as is. The school committee and the administration has flexibility in our policies as they are. I think, a big part of the discussion everybody understands is, especially when it comes to new buildings. Right now, we don't have any new buildings that we would be looking to name. We're not looking to rename this high school. This is the Attleboro High School, and we'll stay that way. But if we were to ever have a new facility, we all agreed as part of our discussion that it should be named after somebody who has done something monumentous when it comes to the education of our children within the Attleboro Public Schools. Sure, what does that mean? That was part of our discussion. It's very subjective, but that's why we have the recommendation of numerous administrators as well as this body, if it ever got to that point. Same thing with memorials. The policy indicates that the purpose of school grounds, areas around the school grounds, is not for memorials, and we do agree with that. And the policy does indicate ways in which scholarships and things of that nature can be used in that way. So we ultimately decided, and the administration recommended, just keeping it as is and just understanding that and relaying that to anybody in the future who reaches out in that regard. Any questions regarding that? Okay. Next, the members should have received the new recommended attendance tardy chart. The administration explained to us that tardiness is a real issue that they, especially here at the high school, that they are struggling with on a daily basis, is a fair way to put it. And they felt that they needed to be a little bit more definitive in what tardies and perpetual tardies results in when it comes to our students. So as you can see, the attendance/tardy chart shows what happens after absence or tardiness of 4 days, and then it goes to 5 to 7 days, 8 to 11 days, and then 12 and more days. And of course, by law, but let alone our policy, it has to become more and more to the point where when you start getting up into 8 to 11 days, we're talking possibly contacting DCF. And when we're talking 12 or more days, we're talking CRAs and things of that nature. So just wanted to get this a little bit more defined and being able to present it to parents so that they have this understanding and so that they can be partners in doing everything that they can, along with the administration and staff here, to minimize attendance and tardy issues. Any questions? Yes, please.
How will this be provided to families?
So
parents?
this is going to work its way into, I believe, into our handbooks. But is there anything further to add?
It'll
besides
be
that?
included in the high school handbook, so families will be able to see it through there.
For this year coming up?
Yes.
Okay.
For this year. And we did discuss possibly looking at this in the future for the middle school level, but for now, the high school is where the problem is, so that's where the focus is. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Do we have a definition of what unexcused versus excused absences? I know we have a rough idea, but it'd be helpful if there's a policy about it.
Please.
In our policy, it indicates the difference between excused and unexcused. There are specific areas that are outlined for each,
Is the same criteria used for all school levels or just the high school?
for all schools.
Okay, thank you.
And we did have a discussion during the meeting that, obviously the administration, the principals, they have leeway in regard, they understand if somebody's out with COVID, that this will not apply. There's legitimate reasons why, and it's understood why people would be, missing school. It's understood.
Thanks.
Anything else? Anybody else?
No, I was
Oh, please.
indicating so.
So, and I guess this is my way of asking Mark kind of a question, that we're on target with the parking lot situation here at the high school for the start of the school year.
Yes.
So therefore, there'll be more designated parking areas for students, because I think some of that tardiness issue was kids trying to drive and find a place to park and then finally get into the building and then they're late. You can talk time management and say, maybe you need to show up a little earlier to get the parking, but I know we had some limitations last year, so I'm hopeful that that also helps to cut down on the tardies. But I figured I would ask, because we're 2 weeks away and we
Yeah,
see
well,
all the work going on, but just want to make sure we're on target.
Yeah, we have a 200-plus space parking lot that we didn't have last year.
All right. And again, this tardy chart attendance policy, for lack of a better term, it does indicate like amount of time that is acceptable. That doesn't mean that we want people showing up and saying, oh, I have 15 minutes to get there and be late. No, we understand that there are times where there might be parking issues and other issues. Obviously, we want everybody here on time. But again, it puts it out there of how many tardies equals an absence and what happens, depending on how many. So, any other questions? All right, so we'll look for a motion that this was voted out to approve this. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Next, we had 6 different job descriptions five, we looked at 5, and then we also added a new business of a 6th one. These job descriptions were all provided to the members. So unless somebody would like me to take any one of them separate, I'm going to read what the 6 are, and then we'll do a blanket vote for all of them. So the new job descriptions is executive assistant to the superintendent and executive assistant to the superintendent/school committee, Judy's role, senior clerk typist, senior account clerk, and associate principal. I think as everybody understands, the associate principal is kind of a new concept, so we're using this job description as a means to explain what the responsibilities of that position is. The clerks, what was the reason why we needed to, the changes for the clerk, why we did new job descriptions?
They weren't new job descriptions, they were updated job descriptions.
That's all it is.
That works through the
Yep.
lab with the job descriptions.
Right. Yep, so these came through the lab, thank you. And then again, the whole thing with the executive assistant directly to the superintendent, as well as the role that Judy has, which is executive assistant to both the superintendent and the school committee. So, any further discussion regarding those 6 job descriptions? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. All right, so all those have been approved unanimously, and that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Storrs. Next, we have open forum. If there's anyone who would like to address the committee at open forum, community members have 3 minutes to speak to the committee about items of their concern. Feel free to come to the podium and address the committee.
Good evening. My name's Patty McGeary, and I am a 20-year-plus resident of Attleboro. Superintendent Sawyer couldn't agree more about the importance of reading, and totally agree with that. And Chairman Withers, I hope I don't have to come up here again to talk about this. But I'm here first and foremost to say that banning or censoring books is an infringement on our First Amendment rights, period. They're all, as we already know, there's processes in place in the school system for parents who don't want their child to participate or read in activities that they feel unsuitable. The role of education is to teach our children how to learn, not necessarily what to learn. Critical thinking skills are vital to the longevity of these kids' futures. Kids should be encouraged to ask questions, challenge, research, ask why. The approach of these Mom for Liberty type groups removes this by trying to erase history, removing content, and limiting the ability to find answers. We raise our child not to take things at face value, to ask questions, and to encourage their critical thinking skills. If these folks want to keep their children ignorant and uneducated, let them do that on their own. Our school system should promote learning to the highest levels. I am a proud gay woman who grew up in a large Catholic family. I went to Catholic grammar school, I went to Catholic high school, I went to Catholic college. My parents are married happily for 64 years. I grew up reading, watching, and experiencing heterosexual content, and none of that made me gay. I've known I've been gay my entire life, from a very early age, even before the books that were written. It talks a little about how old I am. So to think that reading about an LGBTQ subject is going to turn or groom our children gay is just absurd. These folks who are on this bandwagon are either grossly ill-informed or uneducated, and actually may benefit from reading a book or two about the subject. But what books did do for me as I got older was to provide a place of belonging and to answer my questions. These kids deserve the same. They have the rights to. The Constitution protects all citizens, not just white, straight, religiously motivated ones. And lastly, what's to say that gay children aren't being groomed by heterosexual content? What are their rights? This partisan narrative really needs to stop. It's hurting the children, it's not helping. This argument is based primarily on religious beliefs.
That's 3 minutes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee at open forum?
Hi, my name is Jillian Amaral. I am a lifelong member, resident of Attleboro. I'm not going to say how many years, but trust me, it's been a while. Again, I hope this is the last time I have to come up here as a librarian and talk about these types of things, but here we go. People who say representation does not matter tend to be well represented. Most white people grow up reading books about white characters. Most heterosexual people grow up reading about heterosexual characters. However, kids need both windows to other worlds and mirrors to reflect their own lives, a phrase coined by Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop in 1990. Otherwise, children can grow up thinking they are devalued in society or thinking they're alone and that something is wrong with them. Reading can be a self-affirmation as well as a mean to teach both empathy, health and safety, and other points of view. Reading a book about a member of the LGBTQ plus community no more makes someone LGBTQ plus as reading about heterosexual people makes you heterosexual. Book censorship is the removal, suppression, or restricted circulation of literary, artistic, or educational materials, of images, ideas, and information on the grounds that they are morally or otherwise objectionable according to the standards applied by the individual censor. The American Library Association condemns censorship and works to defend each person's right to read under the First Amendment and ensure free access to information. Among the over 1,500 censored books in schools, 41% explicitly address LGBTQ plus themes or characters, 40% contain protagonists or predominant secondary color characters of color. To summarize a statement from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, the Massachusetts Library Association, the Massachusetts Library System, and the Massachusetts School Library Association, We support a library staff effort to ensure free, equal, and open access to information, guaranteed to everyone, regardless of age or citizen status, under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. We oppose censorship and intolerance and uphold the American Library Association Library Bill of Rights, affirming many things, but most specifically, attacks on members of our community targeted at marginalized people are more than just book challenges. They're acts of intolerance and exclusion intended to silence diverse voices and views while holding fast to homogenous viewpoints by historically dominant voices. These acts jeopardize everyone's access to learn from different perspectives and limit the opportunities available to those isolated in their experience and to realize they are not alone. Parents have every right to monitor and restrict the books that their children can read, but not the books my child can read. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the committee at open forum tonight? All right, that I will close open forum. Thank you for those of you who got up and spoke. Any new business from the committee tonight? Mr. Demetriou?
Just one question. Mark, I should have asked you this while you were giving other operational updates, but all the other train projects that we've had going on in the other schools, K through 8, are we on target for the start of the school year?
We're close at Wamsutter and Studley, but everything else is done.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other new business? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.